Elena Voss did not choose the pack. The pack chose her, the way storms choose a roof to tear off. She found out on a Tuesday. An ordinary Tuesday, the kind where nothing is supposed to happen, where you drink your coffee and go to work and come home tired. But that Tuesday, 3 men in dark coats stood outside her apartment building, and one of them was Alpha King Damien Cross. She did not know his name yet. She only knew his eyes found her before she reached the door, and something in her chest folded in on itself like paper. "You're the one," he said. Not a question. She laughed, because that's what people do when the world stops making sense. The one what? Mine. That single word changed everything. Within a week, her old life had been packed into boxes she did not remember packing, and she was standing inside a house too big for one family, being told she was the fated mate of a king she had met exactly once. Elena did not want a crown. She did not want a king. She wanted her small apartment back, her noisy neighbors, her Tuesday coffee. But wanting things had stopped mattering the moment Damien decided she belonged to him. He did not court her. Kings do not court. Kings assign. So he assigned the courting to someone else. His name was Ronan Blake, beta of the pack, the man who stood 2 steps behind Damien in every photo, every meeting, every ceremony, visible enough to matter, quiet enough to be forgotten. He had spent his whole life being the second name on the list, and he had made peace with that a long time ago, or so he told himself. Damien handed him a folder like it was nothing. "Get her to like us." "Us," Ronan repeated. "Me. Whatever. Just get it done." Ronan did not ask why the king of an entire pack needed help winning over one woman. He had learned, over the years, that some questions cost more than their worth. The first time Ronan knocked on Elena's door, he brought flowers. Wrong flowers. He did not know that yet. She opened the door in socks that didn't match, and a t-shirt with a hole near the collar, and she looked at the bouquet in his hand like it was a rental car left at the wrong address. "He sent you," she said. "He did. With flowers. With flowers. Do you even know what kind these are?" Ronan glanced down at them like they might answer for him. "No. Neither does he." She stepped back from the door. Not quite an invitation, not quite a rejection. "You can come in." Not because of the flowers, because you're honest about not knowing what kind of flowers you're holding. That was the whole beginning. Nothing dramatic. A door, a joke about flowers, but something about it stuck to Ronan the way certain songs stick, playing quietly behind everything he did for days afterward. He visited again the next week. Then the week after that became twice a week. Then it stopped being about weeks at all and started being about whenever Damien remembered to send him, which, Ronan noticed, though he did not say it out loud, was becoming less and less often. Elena noticed too. "Does he even ask about me?" she said one evening, curled into the corner of her couch with a mug of tea gone cold in her hands. Ronan hesitated a fraction too long before answering. "He's busy." "That's not a yes." "No," Ronan admitted, "it's not." She studied him for a long moment, the kind of look that makes a person feel seen down to the studs. "But you ask. Every time. You always ask how I'm doing before you tell me anything he wants me to hear." Ronan did not have an answer for that. He only knew it was true. Weeks folded into each other. Ronan kept showing up with messages from Damien, instructions, demands, sometimes just cold, formal lines that read like a memo instead of a man speaking to his mate. And slowly, without deciding to, Ronan began changing them, softening the edges, cutting the parts that would only hurt her. Once he simply did not deliver a message at all, because it was cruel for no reason, and cruelty for no reason was something Ronan had never been able to stomach, not even when it came from his own king. He told himself it was strategy, smoothing the path, making the mating bond easier for everyone. It was not strategy. It had stopped being strategy the day Elena laughed at something he said, and he felt that laugh land somewhere underneath his ribs and stay there. Elena, for her part, began noticing the shape of her days changing around his visits. She started making 2 cups of tea instead of 1 before he arrived, without ever deciding to. She started dressing like she cared what she looked like on the days she knew he was coming, and doing the opposite, deliberately messy, deliberately unbothered, on the days Damien was expected, because some small, stubborn part of her refused to perform for a king who could not be bothered to knock on her door himself. Neither of them said any of this out loud. They both knew, the way you know a storm is coming before the first drop falls, and they both chose, for a long while, to pretend the sky was clear. It could not stay that way. The pack held a gala every year, a grand thing, lights and long tables and wolves in human skin pretending, for one night, to be nothing more than well-dressed people at a party. Elena was expected to attend as Damien's intended. She went because refusing would have caused more trouble than it was worth, not because she wanted to stand beside a man who treated her like a line item in his schedule. Not enough to lose control, but enough to lose patience, which in a king can be worse. He found her near the edge of the hall, away from the noise, and when she turned to walk further away from him, he caught her wrist. Not gently. "You don't get to keep ignoring me," he said, low and hard. "You're mine. Act like it." Pain flickered across her face before she could hide it, and for one long second the whole hall seemed to hold its breath. Ronan moved before he decided to move. His hand landed flat against Damien's chest. Not a shove, not yet, just a wall going up where there hadn't been one before. "Let go of her." The words came out steady, steadier than he felt. Damien's eyes cut to him, something dangerous flickering behind the drink. "Excuse me? You heard me." For a moment, nobody in that hall moved. Music kept playing somewhere behind them, absurd and out of place, like a song that didn't know the scene it had wandered into. Then Damien let go of Elena's wrist, slow, deliberate, the way a predator releases something only because it has decided to, not because it was made to. He did not raise a hand to Ronan. He did not need to. The look he gave him did enough damage on its own. "We'll talk later," Damien said, and walked away, and the whole room exhaled at once. Elena did not speak. She only looked at the red mark blooming on her own wrist, and then at Ronan, and something passed between them that neither one had words for yet. Nobody in that room misunderstood what they had just watched. Damien did not touch her again after that night. He also did not forgive. The weeks that followed were quiet in the worst way, the quiet of a held breath. Ronan requested reassignment to the northern border post, a posting nobody wanted, cold and far and mostly pointless, and Elena did not ask why he had gone. She told herself it did not matter. She told herself a lot of things during those weeks that did not survive contact with the truth. It was the cold that finally broke the silence. Ironically, a bitter, biting cold that had nothing gentle about it. Elena drove 3 hours to the border post without fully deciding to go, the way some decisions make themselves before you catch up to them. She found him outside, half frozen, doing rounds that did not need doing, pretending a posting was about security and not about running from something he could not name. Was any of it real? She asked, before he could say hello, before either of them could hide behind small talk. Any of it? Or were you just doing your job the whole time? Ronan looked at her for a long time, long enough that the cold between them stopped feeling like weather and started feeling like something else entirely. He did not answer with words. He crossed the distance between them and kissed her like a man answering a question he had been asked his whole life and never had the courage to answer honestly until now. She did not pull away. Word travels fast in a pack. It travels faster when it involves a king's mate and his own beta. By the time Damien heard, dressed in the careful language of advisors trying not to be the ones who deliver bad news, his face had already gone the kind of still that means the storm underneath has already started. He summoned them both. The throne room, if you could call it that, though Damien preferred the word hall, as if formality could soften what it really was, felt colder than the border post had. "You had one job," Damien said to Ronan, voice quiet in the way that frightens people more than shouting ever could. "Win her over, for me." "I did win her over," Ronan said, "just not for you." The silence after that landed like something breaking. Damien's jaw worked, and for a moment, Elena thought she saw something almost like hurt cross his face before the king in him swallowed it whole. "You have a choice," he said finally, looking at Ronan like he was already a stranger. "Renounce your claim on her, keep your rank, Keep your place at my side. Or don't, and lose everything that comes with being beta. No rank, no protection. You'll be an omega with a target on your back, fair game to any wolf hungry enough to want the title of the man who took something from his king. Ronan did not flinch. Then I lose everything. You'd give up your whole life. For her, I'd give up a life that was never really mine, Ronan said. I spent it standing 2 steps behind you. I'm done standing anywhere I'm not chosen to stand. Elena stepped forward before Damien could answer. Done. Completely done. Being spoken about like she wasn't standing right there. You don't get to decide this, she said. Either of you. I'm not a trophy you pass between yourselves depending on who feels like claiming me this week. She looked at Damien, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, she did not feel small in front of him. There's an old law, she said, pack law, older than your father's rule, probably older than his father's. A mate can call a challenge, witnessed by the pack, not decided by the king's word alone. I'm calling it. Whispers moved through the room like wind through dry grass. Damien's advisors exchanged looks that said this had not happened in generations, that nobody currently breathing had seen it done. You'd humiliate me in front of my own pack, Damien said. You humiliated yourself the night you grabbed my wrist in front of the same pack, Elena answered. I'm just making sure everyone remembers it. The challenge was called for 3 nights later. Word of it spread through the pack faster than any decree Damien had ever issued, and something shifted in the air around the great house. A current of restlessness, of wolves who had spent years watching their king rule by fear, starting to wonder, quietly, what it might look like to have a say. On the night of the challenge, the whole pack gathered in the courtyard under a sky heavy with cold stars. Damien stood on one side, tall, composed, a king who had never once in his life been made to answer to anyone. Ronan stood on the other, no rank left to protect him, nothing but the choice he'd already made written plain across his face. The pack's eldest, an old wolf named Thorin who had outlived 3 kings and buried 2 of them, stepped forward to speak the old words, words that had not been spoken aloud in so long that half the pack didn't know they still existed. The mate chooses, Thorin said, voice carrying clean across the courtyard. Not the king, not the crown, the mate. Elena Voss, the floor is yours. Every eye in that courtyard turned to her. She had never in her life felt so watched, and she had also never in her life felt so certain. I choose the one who showed up, she said, looking not at Damien, not at the crown, not at the throne that came with him, but straight at Ronan. The one who asked how I was doing before he told me what someone else wanted me to hear. The one who put himself between me and pain without stopping to calculate what it would cost him. That's not something a king assigns. That's something a man decides on his own. Damien's face did not move, but something behind his eyes did, the particular stillness of a man watching something slip through his hands that he had never actually held with any care to begin with. He could have fought it. He could have called on old rights of his own, forced the matter, made a scene the pack would talk about for years. But looking around the courtyard, at faces that were no longer looking at him the way they used to, with fear dressed up as respect, he understood, in the plain and unglamorous way that truth sometimes arrives, that he had already lost something he could not win back by force. Fine, he said, and the word cost him more than any battle would have. Take her. Take your title with you when you go, because you won't be keeping it here. I don't want it, Ronan said. I never really did. Damien turned and walked back into the great house without another word, and the crowd parted for him the way it always had, though something in the way they parted felt different now, less like fear, more like distance freely given. Ronan and Elena did not stay in that pack's territory. There was nothing left there for either of them, only the memory of a house too big for the family it never quite let itself become, and a title that had cost Ronan more of himself than he'd ever admitted, even to Elena. They found a small town instead, far from any pack's reach, where nobody knew what a beta was or cared what an alpha king had once wanted. Elena got her small apartment back, more or less, just a different one, with a different view, and a man beside her who made her 2 cups of tea before she even asked for one. It was not a fairy tale. There were fights, small ones, the ordinary kind that come from two people learning how to build something without anyone assigning it to them first. There were nights Ronan still flinched at the memory of the courtyard, still carried the weight of everything he'd walked away from. There were mornings Elena woke up half expecting to find herself back in that too big house, relieved every single time to find she wasn't. But there was also this, small, steady, entirely their own, a door that Ronan knocked on not because someone told him to, but because he wanted to be let in. A woman who opened it every time, not out of duty, but because she chose to. Nobody sent him, nobody assigned her. That, in the end, was the whole difference. Real love, Elena came to understand, is never decreed from a throne. It is not delegated, not assigned, not handed down through rank or title. It is the person who shows up when there is nothing left to gain from showing up at all. The one who stays not because a crown said to, but because staying was the only thing that ever felt like the truth.